Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Strange driving behavior. I have noticed an extreme uptick in angry drivers. I drive frequently on the job and have a construction safety light to improve visibility, and I just checked all my signal lights. They are operating properly. Over the past 2 days, I've had 4 drivers start honking and yelling at me. The first one was upset I wasn't going fast enough for them, but the other 3 times I have no explanation for. Are people starting to malfunction? Between the Schumann resonance issues, alien disclosure, and general sense of unease recently, I see many anons discussing I can't quite put my finger on what might be going on. I also think it could be some sort of demonic attack. I have been calming down lately from a history of road rage, and it seems like something is trying to get me angry again.
Same here. I am in Houston and Sam Houston Parkway, as well as I-10 all the way until Beaumont may as well be demolition derby or NASCAR. People doing 30 over the limit, no lane change signals, and insane drafting to get ahead despite traffic congestion. WTF is going on? I just want to drive the speed limit and reach my destination safely.
Too many people crammed into increasingly smaller spaces. The road I live off needs to be 4-laned due to all the Yankees that have moved here in the past 2 years. They brought their shitty driving road rage with them when they moved.
People are losing it. I think there is an universal intelligence creating friction to ultimately raise consciousness.
Isn't it more likely that it's just us? I feel like some people on this board have a really hard time accepting humanity's inherent shadow. But you know, the darkest shadows are cast by the brightest lights. You must realize that.
I drive for a living. People are definitely driving more and more, like angry harebrains. Could be the huge influx of people into my area. Could be the heat. Could be the coming cataclysm everyone senses. Could be all that and more. Things I've noticed an increase of. This happens daily now. It's the rule rather than the exception. Refusing to signal despite trying to switch lanes and being impatient about it. Tailgating in the slow lane when the fast lane is open. Tailgating in the fast lane when the lane is full and there's nowhere to go. Pulling out onto the road and going slow, forcing people to brake instead of waiting a few seconds for these cars to pass. Approaching stop signs and intersections at the maximum possible speed to try and get cross traffic to brake for them. Speeding up to cut in line in lanes that end instead of slowing down to move with the flow of traffic. Basically, low IQ pettiness and reckless stupidity have become the norm. I still drive as safely as possible, leave a huge bubble in front of me and around me, stay in the slow lane, wait for a sufficient gap before pulling onto a road, and always signal reflexively. You should also make eye contact with other drivers so you can see if they're actually paying attention, which could save your life. Try to figure out what they want to do and assume the worst. Don't let your ego take over, though. You don't become one of them. I'll add a couple, sitting at a red light with several cars' lengths of distance between himself and the next car forward. When merging onto a highway via a ramp, not merging as soon as you can, but rather following the shoulder line all the way to the end as it bends onto the highway itself, regardless of traffic. This last one happens if no one is around, just as often as if there is dense traffic and it causes more traffic as people have to brake. Whenever I pull alongside these clowns, the driver just looks soulless and oblivious.
This one is really bizarre. I can't wrap my head around it at all. Sometimes they will be the first car at the light just stopped way back from the stop bar. Sometimes they will seem to realize and pull up while the light is still red, sometimes not. Another weird one is people who will try to change lanes at the red light. Like they will stop and then veer into the lane next to them a few moments later, not because they need to get into the turn lane and forget, but simply to get one car ahead, or seemingly for no reason at all.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed this much, but one of my friends mentioned it when I mentioned the following the line merge thing I mentioned earlier. Later that day, I saw a guy sitting probably 4 car lengths back from the next car at the light. Just sitting there. What you're describing is a sign of people being totally checked out and not planning even a few seconds ahead. I'd reckon this is exactly why I see more people dart across 2 to 4 lanes of traffic last second to get at an exit, or cut out of an exit last second. I even have seen semis do this.
Life in the northeastern United States is faster paced. People not from this area do not understand that for some reason. It's like some people really enjoy seeing miles of sprawling urban decay or cornfields. Also, what consequences? We stopped living in a nation of law and order 3 years ago. At least I use the marked lanes and still stop at red lights and stop signs. The shoulders on both sides have become additional lanes since the plague. I see dirt bikes and 4-wheelers up and down the block all day. I carry at least 1 firearm when I leave my home, and so should you.
I believe that due to the capacity we're at currently with the number of humans on this planet and resource allocation being improperly executed, some defense mechanism which causes humans to be more violent towards one another is happening. I've noticed since about 5 or so years ago that people's tempers and tolerance for bullshit has diminished greatly. I suspect that if we as a society was more geared towards the proliferation of life, growth, tolerance, and knowledge, our collective psyche wouldn't be this hostile and aggressive through individuals.
I too have a yellow beacon on the truck type of job and am on the road daily in New England. Around here there are waves of traffic madness. Starting at the 6 a.m. hour, everybody is going to work at the same time. It's still dark, foggy, black ice, etc. They are reckless and there's a lot of fatal crashes in those hours. Many of them are trying to beat each other to the parking lot to get a space. This high-speed melee goes until 8 a.m.-ish, things cool down till 10 a.m. When all the elderly come out do their things. Until 3 p.m. they rule the roads and are slow and pokey and do dumb, dangerous shit, because they are old and most have failing senses and motor skills and have no business behind the wheel. Very dangerous because of how unpredictable they are. They will look right at you and pull out in front of you while maintaining eye contact. From 3:30 to 6 p.m. everybody is getting out of work and are feverishly trying to get home for their reasons. And this is the worst time to be on the roads anywhere. They are absolutely brutal and don't give one single fuck about you or your safety. It's over by 7 p.m. and from then on it's drunks and deer till the wee hours in the AM, rinse, repeat. Worse on Fridays. The only change that I have noticed in the pattern is my own attitude, lack of patience, rageful thoughts, and general negativity towards my fellow human. I've thought about it and I think it's due to people's fatigue. I really just can't stand these assholes anymore. I have to catch myself when I think like that because it will become my reality if I don't chill out. Thanks for reading my travel blog.
I'm a therapist, and I'm having to deal with people all day. I've been doing it a long time, and know all the ways of dealing, but since the last few years I've changed. I'm so sick of people's shit, and I'm getting very wound up by the idiot level driving out there. I think there's a lot of unprocessed trauma from the lockdowns, even more than the deaths and health issues. People had their entire nice, safe view of the world swept away. I was very aware of that I was feeling it and working with it in people, but maybe not immune myself. And add on to the financial crisis, people are not having good, grounded, safe experiences of life.
2 things. One is, I would not want your job, ever. You must be in hell. The second is, I have never had a therapist, but lately I've wanted one. I go to AA and my home group is the closest to therapy that I get. But lately, I've been on a spiritual path that would sound insane to most folks. I can't say what's on my mind in front of a group like that without sounding batshit crazy, so I haven't said much in the past few months, nothing of substance anyway. I would love to have a therapist that visits /x/. I get by with my inner circle, I get people to talk to, but not about the stuff I get into from here, which is some pretty deep woo-woo kind of shit.
Don't have much to add, but I'd encourage you to find one if you can. I was really similar, not feeling comfortable speaking my mind in front of people because they'd think I'm a lunatic. I found a therapist who is really open-minded about weird shit and has been good for me. Hang in there, man.
No, I think the last few years exposed what's been simmering for a long time. Basically, people were doing what they had to get by until the lockdowns imploded the economy and everyone started becoming very existential about the meaning of life. It's like a bunch of zombie slaves being tasked out relentlessly by their overloads, and suddenly there was reprieve. What is the purpose of all this bullshit? Why is society visibly decaying with everything becoming less fun and more dangerous? And then everyone's shackled up again and forced back to the grind by the slave drivers. Gotta come back into work. Yeah, no shit, people are agitated. They had a taste of something different and they realized how much they hate swallowing the bullshit. And maybe the other issue is that there's nowhere to blow off the steam. Relationships and romance becomes more fragmented by tech, and the whole of life starts feeling like a conveyor belt of misery with social isolationism being reinforced around every corner. It's like you gotta fight to swim against the social current just to feel human.
Driving back from Buddy's house an hour away, town population is about 1,300 western central Oklahoma. The nearest actual town is 30 minutes away. On the state highway, there's a stretch for about 20 minutes with absolutely no cell phone service. Driving along, jamming some Tool, no spooks at this point. Suddenly fog, which is rare for August WTF. Flash shit, it's an alien. Flashbang, can't see shit but keep driving to avoid being sucked out of the car. Realized it was a transformer blowing up. Call Buddy once I get service to see if he still has power. Situation normal, sir. Over and out. Once I get to Crescent, the nearest town, I see a tweaker in a dead sprint down the sidewalk. It's 1 a.m. About 10 seconds later, I see a cop deja vu around a corner with his lights on. About 30 seconds later, I see 2 OGE trucks, power line service, going the opposite direction. Makes sense now. .jpg. Get to the interstate and notice it's unusually empty for a Friday night. Shitty Mitsubishi Eclipse wants to get in the right lane in front of me. Flashlights to let her over. She changes her mind. Not passing that drunk .gif. I coincidentally got off at the same exit. I missed mine because of deep thought. Red light, continuing to blast undertow. Next red light, still behind her, backtracking. At this point it's weird because literally nobody else is out and we're both backtracking. Green light. 10 seconds later I politely tap the horn so the drunk wakes up. Proceeds. No road rage detected. Pass her and speed up to avoid brake check. She gets in my lane, follows me the long way home. Decide to just park and walk into the apartment. She parks 2 spots away, gets out, no words exchanged. Looks like 30-year-old Karen. She's about 50 feet behind me when I finally look over my shoulder, walk into the apartment around the corner and wait a few minutes. Go out with a Beretta M92 and 17-round mag. Nowhere to be found. Make a lap around the complex to make sure she doesn't live here or something. Nowhere to be found. No problems since.
I just chill out. I already know my trip times, detours, and what speeds I'd have to hit to significantly eat a chunk out of it. There are not many times where it's actually worth it, because I'd have to hit around 100 to 140 kilometers per hour to actually make that happen. Maybe it's old-fashioned, but it used to be that people knew how to drive on damn near any street they came across. Learn your major cities and capitals and you can navigate the entire United States, accurately to within 20 square miles. The highway system in the US is actually designed pretty well in this regard. Other countries have attempted to copy this, but it only has a superficial resemblance to the US highway system. Even the Autobahn isn't anywhere near as good. Miss an exit and you'll drive 80 kilometers just to get back on the right road to backtrack.
There was one stretch of road somewhere between various East Bay cities here in California. I have literally no idea where it actually was, because my spooky friends and I would only ever end up there while trying to get somewhere else, after midnight. Heavily wooded, huge concrete wall with an eye spray painted on it. Trees and creepy side roads on either side, and not a single streetlight or lived-in house, only an abandoned one here and there. I would have thought I dreamed the place up if we hadn't ended up there no less than 3 times. The whole road just felt so nasty. And usually wooded roads like that have a deer problem up around where this must have been. This one only ever had moths and creepy shadows dancing in the headlights. It's not really creepy because anything actually happened there. We'd just end up lost there and then never be able to figure out where the hell it was when going back to look for it. And I mean, it was a significantly wide road. It wasn't like somebody's driveway.
I have one from a few years back. Friend asked me to pick him up from work. It was my birthday. We were going to go smoke pot, and since I was freshly 21 and the oldest member of my group of friends, I got a case of beer for the rest of my group of friends to kick the party off. Waiting for my friend to finish his shift, says he's got to stay late, another hour or so. Decided to go for a drive around the area since it was a nice night and the roads are fun to drive. Take a few turns through an area I'm familiar with. Up a really steep hill that tops out overlooking a really nice view of Harrisburg. Chill there for a little while, have a cigarette and roll a blunt for the ride back to my friend's house once I pick him up. Head back down the other side of the hill and take another road that I've taken a ton of times. Normally a shortcut back to where he works. Take a turn because there's a cop with someone pulled over, head down a side road, and I don't want any police trouble with weed in the car. Find this weird road that has a tunnel that I've never seen before. Has a weird tunnel I've never seen before. Pretty familiar with this area. Dumps me out only a few blocks from the road where I need to be. Oh shit, sweet new shortcut. Try it again a few days later. The road I took is still there. No tunnel, and it doesn't lead to that area. Drive to that area, take the road I came out on. It leads to a cul-de-sac. I've tried to find that tunnel and side road every way I know how. Even asked folk who live around there. Nobody seems to know what I'm talking about.
This happened in the Pacific Northwest during the fall of 2012. Be me. Driving home from target shooting in the woods, at around 20 o'clock, it's pitch black outside. Driving at 30 miles per hour because I'm on a windy road. See a figure in the dark walking in my direction on the side of the narrow road. WTF. Stop the car and walk up to the figure. Unsurprisingly, it was a frail out guy. Probably been in this town his whole life and is senile and escaped his home or some shit. Call out to the guy and he seems to be more lucid than I expected. Says he was walking home. I'm like, walking home. You're in the middle of nowhere and it's been dark for the past 3 hours. But whatever. Drive the old man home, and he directs me to an old 2-story house that seems out of nowhere about 20 minutes from where I picked the old guy up. The house didn't look like it ran down when I dropped him off. The next morning I realized the guy left his raincoat in my back seat. So the next morning I drove back up to the old man's house and knocked on the door. The old lady answers, visibly confused. Explained to her that her husband or whoever left his coat in my car last night when I dropped him off. The old woman immediately starts crying uncontrollably, takes me into her house and showed me the pictures of her and the guy I just picked up. Apparently he had died 10 years earlier on that windy part of the road where I found him. I was homeless for a while in my younger years. The first place I thought to go to was a small bridge left over from the Civil War. The road above was meant mainly for horses and the like, but could be used by cars and trucks. On my first night there, I met this guy named Nathan. He was super nice, had some food, and even knew a place I could work for some scratch. Nathan was a bit strange. He kept dead mice in his pockets and sniffed them when he thought no one was looking. He drank his own pee when there were other drinks to be had, and he had ginger hair. One night, after about 3 weeks hanging with Nathan under the bridge, I came back to see him cut up. I mean, cut up, dude. It was heavy. I panicked and started to run to the gas station near the depot. I think I heard him say, "It's just a joke, don't leave me here." Not until I finished the 911 call did it register. I came back and he was all gray and blue. When I touched him, I had this weird vibration going through the part of my finger that touched him. This same sensation I still get today. I'm an EMT when I have to touch the deceased. Every time I go by that bridge, I think about him and the first dead person I saw.
A creepy road is near where I live in Ohio. Its local name is Trail Bottom Road, but the township has a number associated with it. It's a long stretch through deep woods that connects 2 small towns together through a back way. I was a paper delivery driver, and I would take my wife and son, who was small at the time, out with me. She would put the papers in the boxes while I drove. The first night was okay, but it was the second night that was spooky. She was putting in a paper and screamed for a few seconds and rolled her window up. I drove off like a bat out of hell and asked what the hell happened. She says that a ghost reached and grabbed her. We had 3 more papers to deliver on that route, and I did the rest on foot near the boxes. The worst time was when I was driving to put my son to sleep with my wife in the passenger seat again. We were driving on a road that I knew well, and the roads were clear. We were driving into the local town and turning around when I freaked out. There was a flashing red light warning of high water ahead, and I spazzed out. It brought back a memory that I had forgotten. But it wasn't the memory that I'm talking about. What happened after I calmed down and was driving home still bothers me to this day. As I'm driving back, trying not to cry as I explain the alien encounter memory, something comes running across the road. My headlights illuminated it perfectly, and it was a canine with a human face. The face looked all melty, like in The Thing, and I ran it over. I drove back into town and checked on the front end because the bang it made hitting my front end sounded horrible. No blood, fur, or flesh anywhere. It still scares me to this day.
Have you tried driving the speed limit yet? That is the problem I've seen get much worse since around 2016. People drive slower and slower. The average driver drives exactly like an 80-year-old woman did 20 years ago. I've been driving for about 19 years now, and everyone drives like grandmas, no matter what state I'm in. Speed up. If the speed limit is 40, how about going 40 at least, and not 32 in any lane? Judging by all the comments in this thread, you all drive under the speed limit in every lane, have nowhere to be, and I'd be the one honking at you, wondering why you have not a care in the world what time you get where you're going. Get off your fucking phone. Pay attention to what you're doing. When the light is green, you go, stop driving, like a granny.
This is a huge irritation. I sometimes count to 3 or 4 seconds before I see the first driver waiting at the light pull ahead when the light turns green. So many people go straight to their phones when they stop at red lights.
I've noticed this every summer for 7 years. Barring the last few years where I didn't go out, friends of mine assume it's the change in temperature. My conspiracy theory: I personally assume that the heat dislodges any stray lead in the soil, swirls it around in the air, and a number of people get very minor lead poisoning. The lead is near the roads because leaded gasoline was legal until 1975, so it gets stuck to the dirt, or maybe it's under the asphalt and dug up by summer construction.
Same. It's just constant. Every single person tailgates and just drives like a complete chub. I just go the speed limit now and pass people when they go slower than the speed limit. Never seen it in my life. What you're experiencing is testosterone respond to other people attacking you. Just ignore them.
Go to bed, Grandpa. Everything is speeding up. Speed limits no longer exist.
You're actually not in a rush, though. Calm down before you run a family off the road, you double-digit IQ animal. Aggressive drivers are the Hilux of the road. There's one extremely dangerous thing we all do every day, and idiots like you are making the roads worse for everyone. If you're constantly tailgating and pretending you're in a rush, what you're doing is demonstrating your lack of self-control the second you have any autonomy or control of others. Start being embarrassed about it.
Not to mention cost per mile increases exponentially with those driving behaviors. Speeding 10 miles per hour saves about a few dozen hours a year, but costs thousands more per year to do just in consumables. It actually reaches a point where unless said driver earns 6 figures or more per year, they lose money trying to drive faster to squeeze out a few more seconds. If they wreck their car, any savings accrued basically vanish the moment the bumper cover caves in. It's a very difficult psychology to overcome once it's rooted in place. Like you said, aggressive drivers are the Hilux of the road. Most people should take the bus, but are forced to take the wheel.
When I'm 2 inches behind you and blow my train horn, you will forget about your well-crafted post and cuck your way to the right lane. I don't press people when they don't have a choice, but the whole "I'm going to slow everyone else down on the highway because I think I can" isn't going to happen. Something tells me you aren't the type to go to step 2 with whoever is behind you, so just go to the slow lane, please. Then everyone wins. Time equals money. Many of us aren't on the highway for the fun drive.
LOL, you're proving my point. I do get over for drivers like you. I want you to pass me as far as you possibly can, so I don't have to deal with your low IQ stunts. Why would I want an insecure child tailgating me? I'm going to win this race to the red light. Know me first. Imagine your brain actually working like this when you're going to get Chipotle. You're a low-quality person.
My issue is with being stuck in slower traffic that impedes my ability to correctly time lights. It can make the difference of 10 minutes that I have to sit in traffic in what amounts to a 15-minute drive. I hate everybody on the road and would prefer to spend as little time sharing it as possible. Wherever possible, I like to drive during non-peak traffic. Lately, it seems like traffic is everywhere at all times of the day except in the late evening hours and the very early morning.
I know what you're talking about, and riding the ass of some oblivious boomer going 20 under the speed limit in the fast lane is often the only way to get them to move over. I'll tailgate to let them know I want to get around, but then I back off. I change lanes and let someone else try. There's less ego in it for them that way too. Just stubbornly staying 2 inches behind them. The entire trip is dangerous and dumb though. And that's how most people seem to tailgate, even in the slow lane. Makes no sense. This is happening in a lot of places in America, as populations move into smaller cities, from the coasts, and via mass immigration. I think this might be the main reason drivers are pissy.
I figure all the delivery services or taxi services are adding additional drivers. When everyone's working a part-time gig that involves driving, it must make a difference in traffic.
Yes, as I love it when people post like this, get prepared to read my most autistic rant yet. First of all, let me say I really dislike your way of talking, and it reminds me of every Reddit friend ever, including me at one point. So I already know you are a confused and unstable person right off the bat with that feminine pseudo-question statement. Some people on this board have a really hard time accepting humanity's inherent shadow. And as expected, it was followed up with this gem. This piece de resistance, this creme de la creme of limp-wristed gaslighting babble. Instead of sharing your opinion directly, you fear direct criticism. So you resort to this wishy-washy, complicated, demeaning, and patronizing statement based on nothing that some people have a really hard time accepting humanity's inherent shadow. In wording it like this, you hope to avoid immediate disagreement with your premise by tricking people into accepting your premise a priori, and thus have to answer to your assertion directly. You do this because it works that way on you. You are controlled by appeals to shame and peer pressure, so by default you use the same methods in your own arguments, if you can call them that. So now we are back to the standard postmodern materialist idea that negativity is a reality that we must accept and integrate into ourselves. Carl Jung may agree, but that is not likely what you mean. People who talk like you often value pessimism and nihilism as a sign of intelligence and grounding. Again, you simply use this as the basis to disagree with the premise of the OP without actually having to provide any argument. No, it's not that you personally don't think the uptick is due to some higher level of existence or media manipulation. It's, isn't it, nothing ever happens and everything is meaningless. And, you just, can't accept that. Fix your diet.
Nah, you're just being autistic. Anon did a fine job saying that humans are weak sometimes, and even considering that we might be bad just doesn't cross certain people's minds. Certain people's first explanations for bad drivers is metaphysical nonsense goobers speak instead, like the post they were responding to. They're not giving you anything like what you're saying a priori. You cannot assume they're saying humanity has a giant inherent shadow. It might just be a small one. But go on ahead and keep putting words into their mouth and saying they're gaslighting people. It's funny. With that buzzword I've seen from experience, it is usually whoever smelt it dealt it. The brightest light and darkest shadow metaphor is shit though. Less light is much darker. Just turn off your lights and look for yourself. Pseudo-question statement. It is called a rhetorical question, Doc. Relax. This isn't new territory, and the ellipses are kind of dumb, yes. Anon is still being a pleb, maybe even more than you are.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.